Okay.
So
I apologize for
only
being-
say nice things about Diane Zidman. I'm kidding.
Right.
We would only say nice things about
She's a lovely person.
Okay. So I know tonight's book. Oh, I got to do it right here. I'm going to share my screen. Edgar Carrick. He's a little quirky. And I want to show you what he looks like. And if you follow me on Facebook, I posted a a video that he did recent. It was a Zoom with another author, Nathan Englander, and he's really aged. And I said to my girlfriend, I said, I thought he was so cute, but now he's all gray. He looks really skinny. I don't know, maybe the quarantine.
Maybe the
was hard
lockout's
on-
been bad for him. Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been. I mean, that's a young Edgar. Here we go. I mean, so. All right. So
Yeah.
Edgar Carrick, he was born in 1967 and is an Israeli writer known for his short stories, graphic novels, script writing for film and television. He was born in Ramat Gan, and Ramat Gan is like the, the Highland Park of Tel Aviv.
Okay.
But everybody's Jewish everywhere.
Right.
He's the third child to parents who survived the Holocaust. Both of his parents are from Poland. He lives in Tel Aviv with his wife, Shira Geffen. And I just need to quickly, I'm pretty sure Shira, her father is Yonatan Geffen, and he is an author. Her brother, Aviv Geffen, is a singer. They're kind of like they're royalty in, when you say Geffen, everyone in Israel knows what you're talking about. So, and she acted in the television series B'ti Pool, and that's the, what's the one on HBO where there's a psychiatrist?
I don't have HBO. I don't know.
It'll come to me. Anyway, so she's kind of a star in her own right. And as you know, he's done other short story books, and he's a kind of quintessential Israeli. And some of it was, totally out there. And I guess I'll ask, well, first, what story did you, is there any story that comes up? I mean, I have stuff to talk about, but what caught your eye, and or which one didn't you like? Paula.
I didn't like all of it.
Okay.
Me too.
Me
All right.
too. It was too dark for me,
Oh, it was very dark.
very dark. And I think coming out of a time that we've been in looking for hope, at the timing of this, it just brought back, I don't know, it just went to a bad place. My sister and I came from a family of a lot of emotional illness. We have suicide in our family, and that opening one.
Fly
That's very-
already. That's where the title of the book is.
Yeah.
So that kind of set me into a dark place.
Okay.
And I forced myself to finish the book because I never want to come unprepared.
Paula, you don't have, I mean, especially a
No.
short story book.
No, but I feel like I can't make a judgment on one story.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel better as I went on. I do have to say that series of emails between the Holocaust survivor and the museum,
Yeah.
after working in a medical practice for almost 30 years in a suburb that will remain unnamed in the North Shore,
Uh-huh.
that
The
made me-
Ramat Gan of the North Shore.
that made me, okay, we can't do anything with these people. These aliens, we need to bail. We're not going to do anything with these people.
Right.
That's the only thing that I found humorous. The rest of it I found so sad and
Yeah.
so depressing. And he's he's an interesting writer. I get all of that, but this book was just not something that I enjoyed.
No.
Right. It took, this book was translated by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
5 people. I read that.
Right. And one of them being Nathan Englander. And he is the one who wrote, when we talk about Anne Frank, what do we mean? And if you haven't read that book, it's also, there's some weird, sad things in that, but they're all, they're gifted young writers who.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Too
so what
many-
I enjoy, I'd like to say that what I enjoy very much about being in book groups is that it stretches what you might not read on your own.
Absolutely.
And so that's why we all participate. I think why many of us participate in this. And so
Yeah.
not everything is not everything's a top
Right.
10 hit
And
in your own personal view,
Yeah. I think you're really next month's book it has some sad elements. It's I'll wait and tell you, but it's very hard. I tried to do a short story, and what I find very difficult for this book group is not picking a Holocaust book every month.
And
Because
yeah.
there's one after another, and some of them, I just finished Jillian Cantor's book.
Oh, yeah.
The hours count.
No, that was fantastic. That's
Oh,
about
yeah.
the Rosenbergs, and we've done that. That is a fabulous book.
Fabulous book.
I'll find it. It was about the Holocaust, but I can't, pick Holocaust book after Holocaust book.
No,
So
no.
our next book is Florence Adler Swims Forever,
Oh,
and it takes place, I think, in the early 1900s on like Coney Island on the boardwalk.
okay.
So, and hopefully you'll find it interesting.
And I applaud you, Vanessa, for stretching what we normally would pick up. And
That's for sure.
and
That's
I
for sure.
and
Absolutely for sure.
to give us such insight into it. But I have to share with this book, in line with Paula's, we're overachievers and we usually come prepared, but I gave myself, I have to confess, permission that this is distressing me. And so
Yeah, I don't want
didn't
to,
finish it.
right,
Right.
distress anyone.
This was not like a healthy thing for me at this time. So I haven't done that with the book group ever, but I stopped.
You can always do it. There's no grades. You can always do that.
Well, we-
Merle, go ahead.
Andy
And you
and I
need-
would get letter F.
No.
Yeah. Too
No,
much.
you finished. So you
And Merle, you need to unmute.
Yesterday, I went to Jim Schuster's class about the Holocaust, and I walked away remembering this quote that he said about revenge is a black hole. You can never get to the bottom of it. And this one story, Tabula Rasa, where the people created clones in order to take revenge on them. I thought that was a very interesting concept. And, it was almost like science fiction, very surreal. And when the boy who has the initial A says, so you made me look like Adolf Hitler, but I'm not Adolf Hitler. And he said, why do you want to take revenge on me so many years after? I'm not really him. I thought that was a great story because it really made you think about, even if he did take revenge, because he cocked the gun, but we don't know for sure that he really shot it.
Right.
So that leaves it kind of open. Did anyone else read it? Do you think he did kill the boy?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. I don't know. I was left with so many unanswered. It
Yeah.
just, I don't know.
But the boy wasn't real anyway. He was a clone. And all of the children were clones,
But
which you don't know that till the very end of the story.
But you had the sense that they had feelings and thoughts too, and that almost like a cyborg, something that's part robot but part human.
Right. yeah.
Anyway, it was just very sad, but I was hoping he didn't kill the little
No.
clone.
At the end of that story, I'm sorry, but a person who insists on avenging the dead 80 years after the fact has to make some compromises. The old man's hand began to shake. You're Hitler, he cried. You're a cunning devil who even now in your last moments keeps trying to play tricks. I'm Antoine, A whispered and closed his eyes. And the metallic click of the gun being cocked sounded so far away now. I think that some of these issues, getting revenge, is something they deal with, I don't want to say daily, but quite a bit in Israel. And having been in Jim Schuster's class as well, you know, he was talking about Eichmann, who was the man in the glass booth, and they had he was in a glass booth to protect him. And, you know, how they deal with the Holocaust. And, you know, after reading his biography, that both of his parents are survivors, it's something that I think the whole population lives with, and also the children of survivors. Paula.
I think that as American Jews, we have a deficit in really trying to understand the Israeli mentality. And I think the translation by 5 people from Hebrew, which has a different vocabulary completely from English, maybe I got lost in some of that as well, but maybe I didn't get the I don't know, maybe all the nuances and their psyche. You know, there's a psyche, we have a psyche here that's unique to America. And they do as well. And I don't think any of us could ever imagine what it's like to live there.
Yeah, you know, when I've hired Israeli teachers or Israeli counselors up at camp, the way they treat kids is just, you know, so different.
Right.
And in one way, they're very strict, but in another way, they're like, well, you know, if they break the rules, oh well. And at camp, you have to follow the rules because you're in a community, and but as Americans, we're much more rule followers.
Yeah.
And yesterday we were talking about, and Merle, you can help me. Someone asked a question about something. I said, we're asking that as Americans.
Right.
You know, we respond to things as, you know, with manifest destiny, and this is our right, and we can do this, and we can do that. So, and I think Israelis have a little bit of that, and they let kids, I don't want to say run wild, but they let that, they're very, what's the word?
They're more hands off. They're more
Pardon?
hands off. They're more hands off. They're not helicopter lawnmower parents. But there's a strictness to them that here in America we don't have. But yeah, they don't coddle their kids.
No, but
they're
there's
lenient. I'm sorry, Paula, go ahead.
And Jerusalem.
They're strict teachers, though. I mean, my kids had all Israeli teachers at Beth Judea. They were scared all the time. These teachers, I mean, you didn't burp without paying a penance for it. You know, they were tough, and they really weren't used to that kind of discipline.
Yeah.
The different way of the education was much stricter than our teachers were.
Yes. And not as compassionate.
Not at all.
They're lenient. And then when the kids go into the army, that's when you know, what's the idiom, you know, that's when it,
right, or something like that.
yes.
You bring
What did
down,
you say, Rhonda?
they bring down the hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's such a difference. Merle, go ahead.
Well, one thing that surprised me is I found the same thing when I went to Hebrew school, that my teachers, Mr. Perez and Mr. Greiber, were the best because they could keep the boys, everything was under control with these men from Israel. But I actually had to quit after my bat mitzvah because our American teacher, the lady, had such a migraine headache one day that she had to walk out of the classroom. The boys went insane. I was practically attacked in the classroom. So I never came back after that. But I mean, the Israelis were wonderful. So what surprised me was this one story, To the Moon and Back, where the little boy said to his father, I want you to get me that real cash register. And the
Yeah.
father starts thinking, I'll pay 1,000 shekels, I'll pay 2,000 shekels. And finally, it didn't work out. They were going to be arrested by the security guard. But that story really surprised me, how much someone will go to that extent to please his child on his birthday, day after his birthday.
Although that was a divorced household.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not saying that somebody in America would go try to get the cash register, but I have seen, you know, I could tell you stories, especially around B'nai Mitzvah, of parents trying to jockey for position that it is the most painful thing I've ever seen.
So sad.
It's very sad, very,
So-
very sad. And I was going to say something. Oh, so we had an Israeli teacher who at Lakeside, who I adored. I'm not going to name, but and you know her, but and some people loved her, and some people, then some people said, you know, my kid can't have her. And
Why?
Well, so I'm one of those parents, and so I'm a
Of course.
teacher. I loved, you know, there are things, there were some like pedagogical things. There were some like,
yeah,
teaching the curriculum that I didn't
right.
agree with. You know, I'm a teacher and I know what it's like to have to contain children, and Hebrew school is a whole different element. As a parent, I really respected that she kept the kids in line. And my daughter, who was, you know, she's a teacher herself now. She's the quintessential perfect student in class. Absolutely adored her. Because my daughter, if you're a parent who coddles your children, then you wouldn't be able to handle a tough love type of teacher. And that's what she was. It was tough love. I'm not saying that my husband and I are all tough love, and I'm not saying that we never cuddle our kids, but you know, there's a happy medium. And a lot of people in today's society, there is no happy medium. It is cuddle, cuddle, cuddle.
Yeah.
So we appreciated her tough love point of view. And my daughter, who never had a problem in any classes ever, really loved her as well. And then was her teaching assistant. Yeah. And I see in my daughter today a lot of elements of myself as a teacher. I see a lot of elements of Vanessa in her as a teacher. And, you know, so that's a big compliment to you, Vanessa, because Sari was your TA too. And there are things that she brings, but because she's an American, she also has that.
Yes.
But, you know, so as one of those parents, and I did hear some of those issues, I thought she was great. It's not easy to teach Hebrew school. And, you know, sometimes kids, they need a different perspective. Sorry, not everyone's going to rub your head and coddle you.
Right. Let's talk about Pineapple Crush. Now, it's at the end. So I'll just tell you a little bit about it.
I didn't get that far.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there's it's an after school program, and they're following this boy man. I'm not, he's older, I think, than I thought he was.
Oh, I think he's probably in his close to 30.
Yes.
I
agree.
Together. Yeah.
And he's in an after school program, and kind of distilling it down in 4 sentences, he sees a bully get beat up, and he hesitates before he breaks it up.
And he smiles.
Right. and one of the kids saw that he hesitated. And in the end, he gets fired because he let this happen. The kid has a concussion, and I am sure things at after school programs in Israel are, you know, especially at that age, junior high, I think, is the zenith of Israeli kids being wild. And the kid who saw him and who had been bullied, he's like, why did you do that? Why, you saw it, why didn't you come in? And he truthfully said to him, I thought he had it coming. And, he was mean. And, part of you, and you would think, and I have a review somewhere and I'll read in a second, even though he was negligent in his job, like if I had a teacher who did that, you'd have to fire them. But you kind of liked him. I kind of liked him because I understood where he was coming from. And then he's trying to have an affair with this other woman who's going to go into the witness protection program, and he's smoking a lot of pot, and it's it was a fascinating story.
I think
And
that's
I
one of the longest ones too. But
Yes.
I didn't finish the book, so I didn't read that.
That was the best developed story, because I think that for me, a flaw of the book was the brevity of some of the stories. And maybe I just wasn't getting all of it. This one, the characters were better developed and you understood where this character was coming from.
I think I'd like that story because it's interesting and
he was a stoner, and he was a stoner, a professional stoner.
Right, yeah.
sounds like he was very honest to say.
He was very honest.
And he knew that by being honest, he was going to get in trouble. And his boss would call and he knew what that meant, and he wouldn't leave a message, and then he had to call. And so that whole culture of cell phones and getting hold of people. And again, for me, and I'm sure we can all relate, Rhonda, especially, entitled parents.
Yeah.
And the kid that got beat up, his mother was chairman of the board.
Oh no.
Those type of things are things that I certainly related to. And you would think that I wouldn't like that character, but I found him sympathetic. And some of the characters were sympathetic. The dad trying to buy the
Cash register.
cash register. I didn't think he was that sympathetic. No, it's the birthday. I know you're divorced, but think about the present ahead of time.
Yeah. The story that I found very confusing.
Yeah.
Well, the angels in heaven, the angel that wasn't happy being in heaven,
Yeah.
God was dead. That was another one that had me ready to.
Yes.
Yeah. I am.
Another one that had me ready. I was ready to throw myself out a basement window well. That was.
But what about Arctic lizard? And that one, and it took me, I didn't realize it until I read a review, but it's about if Trump had a third term.
Right. Yeah. That really got Trump with the third term. We're talking about that. Oh.
Right. So how he joined Unit 14 plus. They're only 14 years old.
All kids.
Yeah. And that, Trump has got us into all these wars, and one of the things they do is, I think, and it's a little confusing, but I think they trade cards. It sounds like Pokemon cards or something. And because they're 14,
games. Some kind of games or something.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's kind of interesting since Trump was so popular, supposedly, in Israel.
Well, so here's the thing. Trump was popular with the right wing in Israel, not the left wing.
Not the left wing.
And the right wing there is usually, a lot of people are center right as opposed to being center left.
Okay.
And the religious, and Trump did a lot of very concrete things. I don't know that I agree with all of them. Moving the embassy to Jerusalem, annexing the Golan Heights, saying settlements are okay, but those are right-wing issues.
Yes.
And I am sure Edgar Carrick is a lefty, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't like Trump. And I think after reading this story,
Yes.
so, and you know, they're going on and on about, and that one kid was 12. He lied so he could get into the army. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my
He
God.
should have been 14, but they feel he was really 12.
Right,
Yeah.
right. He salutes me in front of the whole platoon and says he'll make sure I get a congressional medal.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, so that whole thing was very, I was reading reviews and, you know, prepping for this evening, and I just didn't realize that, you know, I had to go back and reread it.
Mhm.
Far-fetched.
Yes. Well, they're all far-fetched.
Yeah, but that one was really out there with Trump for the third term.
Well, that-
Please.
Well, that's great insight, Vanessa. That makes the book, you know, I was hesitant and talked to Paul. I said, I didn't finish the book. Should I, you know, come? And she said,
Right.
well, you'll learn a lot.
Oh, thank you.
I think we learn a lot from every book. That's one of the things I really like about this book club. Listening to everybody else's perspective of the same thing that we've all read.
Right. There's one that's called Chips.
Right.
And it's about the first girl he ever kissed. And he's very, very well known. And he says at the end, you know, they don't just kiss, you know, it's a very kind of explicit little story. You know,
Yeah.
she gives him a blowjob and then they have
Yeah.
sex. He says at the end, I never saw her again after that. Not in the movies, not at the falafel place, not at the mall. But if she ever happens to read this story, I'd like to thank her again.
Thank you. Because she didn't like it because he said thank you. She was a promiscuous little thing, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
I mean, he had a lot of sex in this book.
He had a lot of sex in this
I
book.
mean, I was surprised. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it was.
I know
right.
Israelis have a very low birth rate. How come he's having so much sex?
Well, right. Listen, I'll never forget.
Thanks, Rhonda.
We, my parents took our whole family, and we took the guide, you know, we had our own guide. We took the guide out for dinner, and he was talking about his family. And I think I don't know if he was talking about his wife or his daughter. And in conversation, he said, and she had an abortion. And then he kind of went on with the story. And as Americans, we were, you know, a hush fell over the crowd. We, you know, maybe we've been meeting together in months. And if somebody would like to, you know, talk about that, you know, we're happy to listen. But we were absolutely floored at how cavalierly he brought up abortion. And I think in Israel, they're much more, and the Hebrew word is dugri, which means straight. And when you have Israelis on the staff, they run around asking every teacher, how much are you making? How much are you making? And again, Americans, you don't discuss whether you're a Hebrew school teacher or, you know, whatever job you're in, but they get just right down to the point. There's no filter. And I think some of this comes out in this book.
Yeah, it's just more open. And sex is much more, it appears in what I've read, it's just more open and natural. It's not something to be covered up or to feel self-conscious about. It's natural and that's it.
Isn't a lot of European countries are like that too?
Yeah, we're pretty Puritan here.
Right.
Absolutely. Merle, what were you going to say?
Well, in the story Yad Vashem that comes up, this man Eugene, who is not Jewish, is with his wife Rachel, and they're walking. He wanted to take her on a trip to the desert, something romantic and beautiful. They end up going to Israel, and they're walking through Yad Vashem. And it's, you know, you think it's very solemn and you'd be very respectful. He has a nosebleed. And instead of taking care of it, he just sort of shoves something up his nose. And the guide says, your nose is bleeding. Meanwhile, he and his wife are having an argument. She wants to go out and smoke. Then they start talking about the abortion that she wanted to have, that he never asked him. It's so inappropriate at Yad Vashem. And then at the end, there's this sort of email exchange between a man who wants to take his mother to one of those places where they have escape rooms on Holocaust Memorial Day. And the man who owns the business writes back, I'm sorry, we are not open on Holocaust Memorial Day. Tell your mother you'll bring her another time. But all of this is very inappropriate behavior related to Yad Vashem and Holocaust Memorial Day.
And you know, the thing, the wife wanted to leave to go out and smoke a cigarette, but once you walk into Yad Vashem, you have to walk through the whole exhibit to walk out. You can't turn around and go back the way you came. It's one way in and then all the way around and out. So that part didn't sound too right to me, that she had to go out and get a smoke, because I don't know where they were in the exhibit, obviously, but yeah.
And again, I think you're right. Americans wouldn't talk that way. Israelis would talk that way. Yeah.
They're much more open about that. And we don't talk about such personal things here out in just general public, or even to people we're just very casually acquainted. We don't bring up those kind of things.
And I think, who said we have a Puritan society? We have a very Puritan society. And I believe that one of the good things about talk shows is that they brought these issues and now we can talk about it. And we're all old enough to remember Phil Donahue and of course Oprah. And I just told this story recently. I was a brand new teacher and we were going on retreat and I wanted to excite the kids. So I was going to have a Phil Donahue show with somebody dressed up as Maimonides, who was a great scholar who talked about tzedakah, and a sixth grader. And I sent home and I made them on Ditto Machine tickets to the Phil Donahue show. And some parents called and said, why can't we go? That was a joke. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
Well,
And
Phil Donahue, I just want to tell you, Vanessa, Phil Donahue and his wife, Marlo Thomas, have a new show called Double Date, where they ask famous people about how they met each other, how they got married. It sounds like a cute idea.
yeah, I'm going to have to. I've always liked Phil Donahue and Marlo Thomas. And I also think that some of, they made it possible for us to talk about abuse. And my sister and I had a girlfriend in high school. And when I look back, I think she was at least verbally abused. But if she had come to us in high school, we wouldn't, in the 70s, we wouldn't have known what to say.
We wouldn't know.
And not that we, at least I would know now who to refer her to. Paula, go ahead.
I think what's so funny about some of the recent scandals among evangelical and ultra right political people, these sex scandals, it's always beneath the surface. The sex is always there, so they can preach and admonish and forbid, but it's a natural part of life and you can't keep it suppressed forever. It's gonna come out.
Right.
And they're the ones who aren't suppressing also. The ones who are preaching about it, they're the ones who aren't.
Well, they went into Rudy Giuliani's apartment and Trump, I know. And Trump made a comment and it was, more of the lies. And my blood pressure started going up and I had to change the channel because I listened last night to, what President Biden had to say. And it was like a relief to hear a normal person talk about things that I'm concerned about. He talked about transgender, all of those things.
Yeah.
And then when you listen to that, is he a senator, Scott, who spoke the Republican rebuttal?
Oh, yes.
I'm like, where are you living? You're the only Black representative of the Senate, and you don't we have systemic racism in this country?
Yes.
What rock are you crawling out from here?
Yeah.
The Trump
that-
rock,
Yeah,
the Trump rock.
I could barely listen to that.
I could.
I couldn't, I had to turn it off. I wouldn't listen
Right.
anymore. No.
Sometimes you
Um,
have to go down the rabbit hole of the other side.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And it's
We
very
have to look-
scary.
unfortunately, we have to listen so that we know what's on the other side,
Right.
you know, so you can't seal yourself off from it. But
I listen to most of it. I
you
listen
want
to
to throw
most.
something at the television set, you know, you're like, really? You know,
Sometimes
Um,
you have to hear the other echo chamber.
you have to hear it, you know, you have to hear it and process it. I just wish the other side would listen to our side. You know, I hope that they're listening as well.
Right. I don't think either side is listening to each other anymore.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
think
No.
they are.
It's not.
No, you're probably right, Rhonda.
And I will say, and I think a lot of you heard Jim Kenny a couple Sundays, and if you didn't, I can send you the link. But
No,
one
it
of
was
the things,
wonderful.
thank you. One of the things he said that I was dismayed about when people said, you know, I might have been me even, how do we engage? He goes, forget about it. They're not listening. And I was like, oh, Jim, what do you mean? We can't forget about it. It's like half of the country. So, you know, I don't have the answer. He doesn't have the answer.
No.
It'll be interesting. But there is the other story, which the 3 children and dad with mashed potatoes come home to find their father is turned into a white rabbit,
Oh,
preferring,
Oh, right.
preferring to believe that her husband has walked out on the family. Mom says they have to get rid of him. I thought that was also very fanciful. And a lot of his stories talk about the husband walking out or the wife walking out or some, you know, dissolution of the marriage. And I think he's been married to Shira Geffen for a long time. His parents, I mean, I don't know. I haven't called him on the phone to see and ask
I
him.
think
how
you
his
should
parents-
find out, Vanessa.
I know about his parents' marriage,
Yeah.
but it's you know,
you know, this was the trouble I had. From what life experience, is he writing from life experience? Is he unhappy? Is he normal? Has he been hospitalized? Is he on heavy medicine?
well, he definitely gets high.
Has he had a
And he
frontal-
I think he was high when he wrote this book.
He could have been. And he and Nathan Englander, and I think they're about the same age. And Nathan Englander was saying he's got really young kids and he looks old to have young kids, and he said he couldn't get any writing done during quarantine because he was with his kids. And Edgar Carrick said, yes, he could get writing done because I guess his kids are grown. So
I think because
Paula, we have a problem, Paula.
his best smoke of the day.
right. So, and what about the allergies, where they had to keep getting the different meat for the dog?
Oh, you know, talk about fanciful stories. Oh my God. That was getting gross after a while. Oh,
Right.
They were looking at pigeon recipes.
right.
So
And they were
first,
eating pigeons too.
right, for those who
Stuffing
didn't,
them.
for those who didn't read it, the dog would get a rash. So first they had dog food, then they went to meat, and then he got a rash. Then he went to camel meat, then got a rash, then pigeons. And
That's funny.
We never heard anything after the pigeons, right?
right, no.
You know,
Right.
so,
When we go, and the wife's name is Rakefet, which is the name of a flower. She found a great French pigeon recipe, pigeons and wine stuffed with rice. It's the
Right.
most delicious thing in the world, and Seffi loves it when we eat the same food as him.
And the dog was like a killer attack dog that they couldn't let
right.
anybody in
Oh,
the house.
right, kept biting people.
Oh my God.
Right.
And what about that man, that old man that the dog knocked down and then he wound up dying afterwards? The son comes
Right.
asking questions
And-
about the dog.
Right, the other one was an Eritrean, and those are, you know, the black immigrants to Israel, and he bit him and he just limped out, and they gave him, you know, 1,000 shekels.
1,000 shekels
Sit
to
here.
live
Um,
out.
You know, that was just, you know, very, you know, they're all, I don't know where they come from. I don't know, you know, what he's thinking, or it's,
Maybe that's what made me feel like I was being left out of the meaning of this. I just was like,
yes,
what was the point of this? At some
Right.
point, I wanted to know what was the point, and some
Right.
of it I got, it was sadness or marriage, or, you know, you have problems raising a child. Maybe you're not being the best parent. Maybe you are, you're doing your best. I get all that. The dog thing, the pigeon recipes, I'm like, no.
so
Well,
this,
not reading that one almost sounds like a satire to me with, 50 years ago or so many years ago, nobody knew from gluten-free, nobody knew from milk intolerance, nobody knew from so many things. And now we know all of these things, and people do their very, very best to accommodate people they know who may or may not have various issues. So when I just heard that, not reading it, to me, that almost sounded like a satire. If the dog had allergies, like
Well,
with,
I mean, where would you get camel meat here? If you
right?
yeah, that, you know,
And it was like black market camel meat also.
yes,
Oh my
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
And this is, I keep thinking about, well, I'm going to read, this is from a review. Even when the stories move into surrealist settings, an orphanage cloning center, a windowless cell controlled by an app, and a friendly support team, the language remains down to earth, funny and cool.
Cool.
Translated into English by 5 people, it suggests that the distance between Hebrew and English is not so great. Heartbreaking, absurdly funny, disturbing, and comforting, Carrot's story bridges worlds. And I'm thinking, maybe, I wonder if there was, I wonder what Sari would say about this. A different generation. Maybe we don't understand the cool factor of this.
I don't get
Um,
cool.
Where do you get, what Hebrew word are they translating into the F word?
Right. And I don't get
Oh, I don't
cool.
know.
Don't get
You
comfort.
know,
There was
I
nothing
don't know
cool.
Hebrew, but that to me was, where are they getting the translation from Hebrew to English? And that's the F
Right.
bomb.
I don't know those words, but there are those words. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
used to, we used to have a Hebrew convocation, and we would give the Gimel kids, and they're like in 5th grade, a dictionary. And we'd do it on a Friday night, and we'd pass it out, and they'd go back and sit in their seats. And I would see them going through those dictionaries, looking up all the swear words. I know that's what they were looking at, because they were so intent. I never saw them, use something that well. Yeah, Paula.
When you said cool, that this review talked about him
Yeah.
being cool, comforting, I had like a senior moment flashback to the comedian Mort Sahl. And I can kind of picture, and some of you are not old enough maybe to know who he was, but he was very edgy, very edgy, and I don't think everybody understood him. And that's kind of how I feel about this author. There's definitely an edginess to him that I'm not getting, but that obviously the public has, because he's very well regarded and well read and highly regarded.
Right.
So-
Okay, here's Mort Sahl, for
Oh.
those wondering.
I'm looking at the young Mort Sahl over
Yeah.
here. Second
Yeah.
one. That's
Yeah.
He was on the cover of Time.
And I remember him on the Ed Sullivan Show when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember that, his humor was not for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone didn't think that he was great.
Yeah.
So.
Andy.
So the 5 translators,
Yes.
was it sequential? Was it they couldn't get through the book, or it took 5 of them to do the entire book?
Well, I don't know. I have no idea, but and it's 1 male and 4 women. The one
Wow.
thing that I can say is that I think some of these stories like appeared in the New Yorker, and maybe these were stories, he had them translated and then he put them into a book, which also may account for the disjointedness.
Hmm.
I don't know though. I mean, I looked stuff up, but
Disjointed is a great,
it's a good word.
a very good word. And you referred to it a little bit earlier, the story where they were in that room and it was all an illusion
Yes,
Yeah, with the windows.
right,
with the windows.
right.
That had me
That
shaking.
was really weird.
Really,
right.
weird. Really had me scratching my head. I
Mhm.
really know.
But the this reviewer, same reviewer says, also charming are Carrick's bro-ish metafictional fables such as Todd, which starts and ends with the line, "My friend Todd wants me to write him a story that will help him get girls to bed." And I think, and after I watched that Nathan Englander, Edgar Carrick interview, maybe some of this is in jokes.
It's
That we
what?
just, obviously Todd knows who he is.
Oh,
Uh,
maybe he's really Sacha Baron Cohen and this is just a giant root.
yeah,
Maybe the whole thing is a giant game.
it, yes, I have no idea.
I
I
don't
was
know.
speaking of Sacha Baron Cohen, I was talking to my parents about movies and I said, did you watch Borat? And they said no. And they're always looking for movies. I said, I know that it's crude, but the scene again with Rudy Giuliani is worth the price of admission.
Honestly, absolutely.
I that is just unbelievable that that they filmed it, they got it, and he must have had to sign a release.
He must have.
So
He must have. Well, let's hope this will lead to a very good case for the Southern District of New York. And that it'll proceed beyond Rudy. Let's hope.
that my fingers are crossed.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
this is our next book is Florence Adler Swims Forever. It's by Rachel Beanland, and I'm gonna send it out tomorrow. I'm gonna try to get her to come to our book group.
That'd be
So
wonderful.
I'm not going to give you the date because I want to check it out with her.
Okay,
That's great.
Okay.
that
So,
would be some.
yeah. And it has some, I feel like I should give trigger warnings. I mean, there is there's some death in this and how they deal with it, and being Jewish is all part of the story. And it's based on, and Rachel Beanland hopefully will tell us, she had an aunt who tried to swim the channel.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, yeah. And then she did. And I think this is her debut novel.
Sounds interesting. Well, if everybody dies in the first 3 chapters, we're ahead of where we were.
No, they don't. They don't.
No, we're good. We're good.
You wait till the end of the book? Give us a chance.
Right.
Give
But
it a
there
thought.
well, it'll be interesting. I do think there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, sure. Well,
Lots
there
of
was with this, even though,
Yes, yes,
it always is. That's
always
the,
is. Always is.
yeah,
That's what's great about this book group. We
Yes.
always have something to talk about.
Do
Yeah.
you think, and not being sexist, because none of us in this room are lightweights. All of us, we've read 80 gazillion Holocaust books and have dealt with a life of many, many issues. Do you think this book would be appreciated more by people of stronger constitutions or different outlook, perhaps,
like trauma surgeons?
like men, like younger men?
Yes. I didn't, when I said, what would Sari think? Maybe I should have said, what would Zach think? Because the reviewer referred to him and his bro, like his bros. So I think you hit the nail on the head. That could
Maybe this is more-
absolutely be. Because I
more for a man.
certainly would not, categorize this as chick lit.
No. No.
And Rachel Beanland's Florence Adler Swims Forever, that also is not, but you know, it's definitely more, it's made for an audience of women. And this, you're right, maybe it's an audience of men.
Yeah, maybe that.
No,
maybe
Ellen Hildebrand.
That was good,
She's
Paula.
my escape. I cannot lie. I cannot lie. She's my escape.
You like her?
It's my guilty pleasure. And I will never, ever go to Nantucket. My husband has no desire to go to Nantucket. I
It's
don't know
beautiful
anybody.
there.
I'm sure it is. My husband has no desire to go. I don't know anybody who would spend all that money to go to Nantucket, but I've read way too many of her books. And I read all of her books about St. John. So, and whatever.
All right.
A little levity for the
Yeah. Well, you know, Arthur, my husband is from Boston, so they went to the Cape.
Mhm.
And so we've been to Martha's Vineyard, and his brother, that was an ER doctor in the summers on Nantucket.
Oh,
And yeah, so when I don't know if I've read any of hers, but there's so many books set on Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard.
Right, exactly. So I just choose hers.
Right. And in other non-Jewish books, I just finished The Kitchen House, which is from 10 years ago. It's about a white slave, and she is sold, she's indentured, and she stays with the slave part of the family, and it was fascinating.
I think I read that too. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. It's by Kathleen Grissom.
Yeah.
Although reading it in 2021, that the author is not a person of color it's not disturbing, but I noticed. And I think, I mean, people brought that up about The Help, Driving Miss Daisy, The Green Book.
Yeah.
So I guess it's becoming, at least we think about it. I think about it more than I used to.
yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I think we would feel the same having a non-Jew write a very personal style, memoir style book about the Holocaust. It would
The
seem,
tattoo artist of Auschwitz.
I'm not as well versed in Holocaust literature as you, Vanessa, but I think people feel an ownership of culture.
Yeah.
A personal experience, a historical experience, you know.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. So this Sunday is Rebecca Kersner from HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant and Aid Society, national speaker. She should be very interesting. Do you want to talk about the pizza dough, Rhonda?
Sure. So everyone, if you're up for getting some pizza dough, last day to order is tomorrow. It's from, who's the woman who does it? Bella Rue Catering. She not only
I ordered it. I just order it.
and the money goes towards the Covenant House, which is a organization that is right here in Chicago that helps homeless youth. I have done, and we're doing a Sleep Out America, a multi-generational event, though I have to admit we're trying to gear a lot of the activities towards children, but working really hard on making that a great evening where we have fun in our homes and express and teach the kids to have gratitude for what they have and a responsibility to help those who don't. And my daughter will be singing with her ukulele.
Oh, how fun.
Yes, I hope she practices.
Right.
Song leader. She's
It'll be our first time hearing her play the ukulele
She's a
too.
Vanessa trained as Rui trained song leader, and she's joining us. So it should be a great evening, and the pizza is a really nice piece part. I just it's posted all over Facebook and
In Macomb at Home and
all the Macomb at home, and I appreciate Macomb for supporting this little pet project of mine. So thank you.
And I will be up in Wisconsin for that also.
yum.
Yes. Okay,
All
ladies,
right.
it's Dr. Plain
Thank
Mahjong,
you.
another Jewish thing.
Thank you. Good to
Thank
see
you.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Rhonda Lynn.